Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he climbed through the twisted wreckage of what had once been a magnificent starship. The vessel lay half buried in the red sand of Kepler 442c, its alien hull gleaming with an otherworldly sheen despite the obvious damage. Solar storms had battered this sector for months, leaving behind a graveyard of ships from a dozen different species. As a salvage technician for the Terran Reclamation Corps, Marcus had seen plenty of alien wrecks, but nothing quite like this. The ship's design defied conventional understanding of aerodynamics and engineering. Flowing curves replaced angular surfaces, and the metal itself seemed to shift color in the dying light of the system's twin suns. "Control, this is Chen. I'm inside the main vessel now," Marcus spoke into his comm unit, his voice echoing in the cavernous interior. "The damage is extensive, but the core systems appear intact, requesting permission to begin preliminary diagnostics." A crackle of static preceded the response. "Copy that, Chen. You have green light for diagnostics. Remember, we're looking for any tech we can reverse engineer. The brass is particularly interested in their propulsion systems." Marcus nodded to himself and pulled out his portable scanner. The readings were immediately confusing. The ship's power core was completely dead, yet his instruments detected faint energy signatures throughout the vessel. It was as if the ship itself was somehow alive, maintaining minimal functions even in its damaged state. Moving deeper into the ship, Marcus found what appeared to be the bridge. The chamber was circular, with smooth walls that curved upward into a dome-like ceiling. Strange symbols flickered weakly along the surfaces, pulsing with a soft blue light. At the center of the room sat what could only be the captain's chair, though it was unlike any command seat Marcus had ever seen. The chair seemed to be carved from a single piece of black crystal, its surface reflecting the dim light in impossible ways. As Marcus approached, he noticed something else, something that made him pause. There were scratches on the chair's armrests, deep gouges that looked almost like claw marks. "Interesting," Marcus muttered, running his fingers along the marks. They were too large to be from any known species and too precise to be accidental damage from the crash. His scanner beeped insistently, drawing his attention to a panel near the chair. The readings showed a massive power conduit running directly beneath the bridge, leading to what his instruments identified as the primary reactor chamber. If he could somehow restart the ship's systems, even partially, the data they could gather would be invaluable. Marcus had always prided himself on his ability to coax life back into dead machinery. It was a talent that had served him well in his 15 years as a technician. He'd brought everything from ancient human vessels to exotic alien fighters back online, at least temporarily. This ship, however, presented challenges he'd never encountered before. The power systems were integrated into the ship's structure in ways that seemed almost organic. Instead of discrete components connected by cables and conduits, the entire vessel appeared to be one massive, interconnected system. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Working methodically, Marcus began tracing the power pathways through the ship. He discovered that the main reactor was located deep in the vessel's core, protected by layers of armor and what appeared to be some kind of energy shielding. Getting to it would require navigating through sections of the ship that had suffered severe damage. As he worked his way deeper into the vessel, Marcus began to notice something strange about the damage patterns. While the exterior showed clear signs of weapons fire and impact damage, the interior seemed almost pristine in places. It was as if something had protected certain areas during whatever battle had brought the ship down. The first major breakthrough came when Marcus located what appeared to be an auxiliary power coupling. The technology was completely foreign, but the principles were universal enough that he could understand the basic function. Using a combination of human engineering tools and careful observation of the alien systems, he managed to establish a temporary connection. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Light flooded through sections of the ship as dormant systems came back online. The symbols on the walls began pulsing more brightly, and Marcus could hear the distant hum of machinery awakening after what might have been centuries of slumber. "Control, you're going to want to hear this," Marcus said, his voice tight with excitement. "I've got partial power restored. The ship's responding to basic commands, and I'm getting massive amounts of data flowing through the systems." The response was immediate. "Outstanding work, Chen. Can you access navigation or communication systems?" Marcus was already moving toward what he hoped was the ship's computer core. The chamber he found was unlike anything in human technology. Instead of traditional displays and interfaces, the entire room was filled with floating holographic projections that seemed to respond to his presence. As he approached the central console, the projections shifted and rearranged themselves, forming what appeared to be star maps and technical readouts. The language was completely alien, but some of the symbols seemed familiar somehow, as if he'd seen them before in dreams. Working with an intuition he couldn't explain, Marcus began interfacing with the ship's systems using his portable computer. The alien technology seemed surprisingly compatible with human electronics, almost as if it had been designed to work with a variety of different systems. Data began flowing across his screens at an incredible rate. Star charts showing systems he'd never heard of, technical specifications for weapons that defied known physics, and something else that made Marcus's blood run cold. The ship's logs showed recent activity, far more recent than the crash should have allowed. According to the timestamps, someone or something had been accessing the ship's systems just days ago. The thought that the vessel might not be as abandoned as it appeared sent a chill down Marcus's spine, but his curiosity overrode his caution. Delving deeper into the ship's memory banks, Marcus discovered something that changed everything. The vessel wasn't just a ship, it was a home. The logs spoke of a crew of one, a being that the translation software could only render as guardian or keeper. The guardian had been alone on the ship for an incredibly long time, possibly centuries. The logs spoke of a great war, of fleeing enemies, and of finding sanctuary among the stars. But they also spoke of loneliness, of a desperate desire for companionship that had driven the Guardian to take increasingly desperate measures. As Marcus read through more of the logs, a picture began to emerge of a being of incredible power and equally incredible loneliness. The Guardian had the ability to change its appearance at will, to take on the form of whatever species it encountered. It had done this many times over the years, always searching for a place to belong. The most recent logs spoke of detecting human ships in the area and the Guardian's excitement at the possibility of making contact with a new species. But something had gone wrong during the initial approach. The ship had been damaged, possibly by automated defense systems, and had crash-landed on the planet's surface. Marcus was so absorbed in the logs that he almost missed the soft footsteps behind him. When he finally turned around, his heart nearly stopped. Standing in the doorway was a figure that looked exactly like him, down to the smallest detail. It was like looking into a mirror except for the eyes. Those eyes held an intelligence and sadness that seemed far older than any human could possess. "You have restored my ship," the figure said, its voice an exact duplicate of Marcus's own. "For this, I am grateful. I have been waiting so long for someone with the skill to bring my home back to life." Marcus's hand moved instinctively toward his sidearm, but the gesture felt futile. Whatever this being was, it had already demonstrated abilities far beyond human understanding. Instead, he forced himself to remain calm and asked the question that was burning in his mind. "What are you?" The figure that looked like Marcus smiled, and for a moment its form seemed to shimmer and shift, revealing glimpses of something vast and serpentine beneath the human facade. "I am what your species might call a dragon," it said simply. "Though that word carries connotations that do not truly capture what I am old Marcus Chen. older than your civilization, older than most stars in this galaxy, and I am very, very alone." The revelation should have been terrifying, but Marcus found himself oddly calm. Perhaps it was the exhaustion of the long day, or perhaps it was something in the creature's manner, but he didn't sense any immediate threat. "Why do you look like me?" Marcus asked. "It seemed appropriate," the dragon replied. "I take the form of those I encounter, hoping to find acceptance. Your species is new to me, but I sense great potential. You brought my ship back to life when others would have simply stripped it for parts. That shows a respect for creation that I find refreshing." Marcus looked around the chamber, seeing the ship's systems in a new light. This wasn't just advanced technology, it was a living creature's home, carefully maintained and loved despite years of solitude. "The ship responds to you so easily," Marcus observed. "It's not really technology at all, is it?" The dragon's human face showed surprise, and then something that might have been respect. "You understand more than most. The ship and I are connected. It is part of me, and I am part of it. When you restored power, you didn't just fix a machine. You gave me back my ability to reach out to the stars." Standing in that alien chamber, facing a being of unimaginable age and power, Marcus made a decision that would change not only his life, but the future of human-alien relations. Instead of reporting back to control immediately, he sat down across from the dragon and said simply, "Tell me your story." The dragon's eyes widened with surprise and something that looked like hope. It had been so long since anyone had shown genuine interest in its existence as more than just a source of advanced technology. "It will take some time," the dragon warned. Marcus settled back in his chair and smiled. "I've got time." The creature that called itself a dragon settled into a chair that materialized from the ship's floor, its human form relaxing as ancient memories stirred to life. Marcus watched in fascination as the being's appearance began to shift subtly, becoming less of a perfect copy and more of an interpretation of humanity, softer around the edges but somehow more genuine. "My name is Zetharian," the dragon began, its voice taking on harmonics that no human throat could produce. "Though names are such limited things when you have lived as long as I have. I have been called many things by many species across the eons: guardian, destroyer, teacher, monster. The truth, as always, lies somewhere between the extremes." Marcus leaned forward, his engineering mind struggling to process what he was witnessing. The ship around them seemed to respond to Zetharian's emotional state, the walls pulsing with gentle light that matched the rhythm of its words. "I was not always alone," Zetharian continued. "Once my kind numbered in the thousands, perhaps millions. We were the shepherds of this galaxy, watching over younger species, guiding them when they asked for guidance, protecting them when they needed protection. We believed in the potential of all life to grow and evolve beyond their origins." The dragon paused, its human features showing pain that seemed to echo across centuries. The ship's lighting dimmed accordingly, and Marcus could swear he heard something like a sigh emanating from the walls themselves. "But power corrupts, Marcus Chen, even when wielded with the best intentions. Some of my kind began to see themselves not as shepherds but as gods. They demanded worship instead of offering guidance, imposed their will instead of respecting the natural development of younger races. The galaxy became divided between those who would rule and those who would serve." Marcus found himself completely absorbed in the story. This wasn't just alien contact, it was living history on a scale that dwarfed human civilization. "What happened to them? Your kind, I mean." Zetharian's form shifted again, and for a moment Marcus caught a glimpse of something vast and terrible. Scales that reflected starlight and eyes like burning suns. Then the human appearance reasserted itself, but the weight of eons remained visible in those borrowed features. "War," Zetharian said simply. A war that lasted for millennia and consumed entire star systems. My people were powerful beyond imagining, but we were also proud beyond reason. Each side believed they were fighting for the future of the galaxy, and neither was willing to compromise. In the end, we destroyed ourselves so thoroughly that few even remember we existed. The ship shuddered slightly, and Marcus realized that these weren't just memories for Zetharian. They were wounds that had never properly healed, carried across the vast emptiness of space for longer than human civilization had existed.
I was part of the faction that believed in guidance over rulership, Zetharian continued. We called ourselves the Preservers, and we fought desperately to maintain the ancient ways. But as the war progressed, even we began to change. The line between preservation and destruction became blurred when survival was at stake.
Marcus watched as the dragon's human form began to pace around the chamber, its movements betraying an energy that seemed barely contained. The ship responded to each step, surfaces lighting up and dimming in complex patterns that might have been a form of communication. The final battle took place in a system that no longer exists, Zetharian said, its voice dropping to barely above a whisper. 7 planets, 3 stars, countless moons, all reduced to cosmic dust in a single day. I was there, Marcus. I participated in that destruction, convinced that it was necessary to prevent my enemies from claiming victory. The weight of that admission hung in the air between them. Marcus tried to imagine the scale of destruction being described and failed. The complete annihilation of an entire star system was beyond human comprehension. When the dust settled, I was alone, not just without allies, but without enemies as well. The war had ended not in victory or defeat, but in mutual extinction. I found myself the sole survivor of a species that had once shaped the destiny of galaxies. Marcus felt a deep sympathy for the creature before him. Whatever Zetharian had done in the past, the loneliness it described was something any human could understand. How long have you been alone? Time loses meaning when measured in eons, Zetharian replied.
Your species had not yet discovered fire when I began my wandering. I have watched civilizations rise and fall, seen species take their first tentative steps into space only to destroy themselves with their newfound power. Always watching, never interfering, carrying the weight of my people's legacy. The dragon moved to what Marcus assumed was a viewing port, though it showed not the alien landscape outside, but a swirling display of stars and nebulae. I made a vow after the war ended, it continued. I would not repeat the mistakes of my kind. I would not impose myself upon younger races or try to guide their development. I would simply observe and remember, ensuring that someone would carry forward the knowledge of what had been lost. Marcus stood and joined Zetharian at the viewing port. The display showed systems he didn't recognize, distant galaxies that might have once housed the dragon's lost civilization. But you're here now talking to me. Doesn't that break your vow? A sound that might have been laughter came from the dragon's human throat. Perhaps it does, but isolation has its own dangers, Marcus Chen. I have spent so long avoiding the mistakes of the past that I may have committed new ones. In my determination not to interfere, I have allowed myself to become nothing more than a ghost haunting the edges of space. The ship around them pulsed with what Marcus was beginning to recognize as Zetharian's emotional state. The lights were warm now, hopeful in a way that suggested this conversation was providing something the dragon had been missing for a very long time. Your species intrigues me, Zetharian continued. In my observations of human development, I have seen something unique. Other races I have watched tend toward either aggressive expansion or peaceful isolation as they mature. But humans seem to maintain both impulses simultaneously. You are capable of great violence and great compassion, often within the same individual. Marcus considered this assessment.
You make us sound contradictory. Not contradictory, Zatharian corrected. Complex. Most species simplify as they evolve, becoming more specialized and losing the flexibility that allowed their initial growth. Humans seem to resist this trend. You maintain your contradictions, your ability to surprise even yourselves. The dragon turned away from the viewing port and faced Marcus directly. When you discovered my ship, your first instinct was not to call for military support or to attempt to claim it as salvage. You chose to repair it, to restore function rather than simply strip away valuable components. That choice speaks to something in your nature that I find hopeful. Marcus felt a flush of pride at the praise, but also a growing concern about his situation. My supervisors are going to expect a report. They're probably wondering why I haven't checked in already. Zatharian nodded, its human features showing understanding. I know, and I will not ask you to betray your obligations to your own kind. But I would like to propose something that might benefit both of our species. The ship's displays came alive around them, showing technical specifications and star charts that took Marcus's breath away. The technology being revealed was centuries, possibly millennia ahead of anything humans had developed. My ship contains the accumulated knowledge of my people, Zatharian explained. Technologies that could advance human civilization by thousands of years. Medical techniques that could eliminate disease and extend life. Energy systems that could power your expansion to the stars. I offer this knowledge freely, with only one condition. Marcus swallowed hard, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was being offered. What condition? I wish to observe your species more closely, Zatharian said. Not to guide or interfere, but simply to learn. I have been alone for so long that I have forgotten what it means to be part of a community, to share experiences with others. Perhaps in studying your kind, I can remember what I have lost. The offer was staggering. But Marcus could also see the complications it would create. The authorities will want to study you as well. They'll have questions, demands. Some of them might not be friendly. Zatharian's form shimmered again, and Marcus caught another glimpse of the vast intelligence hidden behind the human facade. I am not concerned about hostile intentions from your species, Marcus Chen. I have survived the death of my own kind and the collapse of galactic civilization. A few aggressive humans pose no threat to me. The casual way Zatharian dismissed humanity's potential for violence should have been insulting, but Marcus found it oddly reassuring instead. Whatever this creature was, it clearly had the power to protect itself. But I am concerned about causing fear or panic, the dragon continued. My appearance in human space will be significant. It will change everything for your species, whether they are ready for it or not. That is why I need someone I can trust, someone who understands that knowledge must be shared carefully to avoid causing harm. Marcus realized that he was being offered a choice that would define not just his own future, but possibly the future of humanity itself. The weight of that responsibility was almost overwhelming. Why me? He asked. I'm just a technician. I fix broken machines and file reports. I'm not qualified to make decisions for my entire species. Zatharian smiled, and for the first time since its human form had appeared, the expression seemed completely genuine. You underestimate yourself, Marcus Chen. In the past few hours, you have accomplished something that entire research teams might have failed to achieve. You looked at my ship not as a source of profit or power, but as a puzzle to be solved. That perspective is exactly what will be needed in the days ahead. The ship around them pulsed with warm light, and Marcus could feel something like approval emanating from the walls themselves. He was beginning to understand that the vessel wasn't just Zatharian's home. It was part of the dragon's extended consciousness. I need time to think, Marcus said finally. This is too big a decision to make quickly. Of course, Zatharian agreed. But understand that time is not unlimited. Your people will come looking for you eventually, and when they do, the choice may be taken out of both our hands. It would be better if contact could be managed carefully, introduced gradually, rather than forced by circumstance. Marcus nodded, understanding the wisdom in that approach. First contact with an alien species was always portrayed in human fiction as either a moment of wonder or a prelude to invasion. The reality was proving to be far more complex. "There's something else I need to know," Marcus said. "If your people were so powerful, if they had technology like this, how did they manage to destroy themselves so completely? What should humanity watch out for to avoid the same fate?" Zetharian was quiet for a long moment, its human features showing deep contemplation. When it finally spoke, its voice carried the weight of hard-earned wisdom. "Pride," it said simply. "We became so convinced of our own superiority that we forgot we were still capable of making mistakes. We stopped questioning our assumptions, stopped considering that we might be wrong. In the end, we destroyed ourselves not because we lacked power or knowledge, but because we lacked humility." The lesson was clear, and Marcus filed it away as possibly the most important thing he had learned in this extraordinary encounter. As he prepared to make his decision about the future, he made a mental note to remember that warning. Whatever happened next, humanity would need to approach it with both courage and humility, ready to embrace the wonders of the galaxy while remaining true to their own nature. The choices made in the coming days would echo across the stars for generations to come. Marcus spent the next several hours exploring the ship with Zetharian as his guide, witnessing technologies that challenged everything he thought he knew about physics and engineering. The Dragon's vessel wasn't just a ship. It was a masterwork of biotechnology and quantum engineering that blurred the line between organic and artificial in ways that human science was only beginning to theorize about. "Your reactor doesn't burn fuel," Marcus observed as they stood in the ship's power core chamber. "It's converting matter directly into energy at the quantum level." "A simplified explanation, but essentially correct," Zetharian agreed. "My people learned long ago that traditional energy sources were insufficient for travel between galaxies. We developed ways to manipulate reality itself, to convince the universe that the laws of physics were more like gentle suggestions. The core itself was beautiful beyond description, a crystalline structure that seemed to contain entire nebulae within its faceted surfaces. Energy flowed through it in patterns that followed mathematical principles Marcus could almost grasp, but which remained just beyond his understanding. "I could spend a lifetime studying just this one system," Marcus said with genuine awe. "And you would still only scratch the surface," Zetharian replied. "But imagine what your species could accomplish with even a basic understanding of these principles. Clean energy that would last forever, faster than light travel that could open the entire galaxy to human exploration, medical techniques that could extend human lifespan by centuries." The implications were staggering, but Marcus was beginning to understand that Zetharian wasn't offering this knowledge freely without reason. The dragon needed something in return, something more valuable than technology or power. "You're looking for redemption, aren't you?" Marcus said suddenly. "You want to prove that your people's knowledge can be used to create rather than destroy." Zetharian's human form froze, and for a moment the ship around them went completely silent. When the dragon spoke again, its voice carried a vulnerability that Marcus hadn't heard before. "Perhaps you understand me better than I understand myself," Zetharian admitted. "Yes, I carry the weight of my people's failures. Every choice I make is shadowed by the knowledge of how much we lost, how much we destroyed. If I can help another species avoid our fate, perhaps some meaning can be salvaged from the ashes of my civilization." Marcus made his decision then, standing in the heart of a ship that represented both the ultimate achievement and the ultimate failure of a species that had once ruled the stars. "I'll help you," he said simply, "but we do this carefully, on humanity's terms as much as yours. The relief that washed over Zetharian's features was almost overwhelming. The ship around them burst into brilliant light, systems activating that Marcus hadn't even known existed. For a moment, he caught a glimpse of what the vessel must have been like in its prime, filled with purpose and hope instead of loneliness and regret. "Thank you," Zetharian said, and the gratitude in its voice was deeper than words could convey. "I have waited so long for someone willing to take this risk." Marcus pulled out his communication device, knowing that the next few minutes would change everything. "Control, this is Chen. I need to speak with Director Walsh immediately. Priority Alpha." The response was immediate. "Chen, where the hell have you been? We lost your signal hours ago. What's your status?" "My status is complicated," Marcus replied. "I've got the alien ship partially operational, and I've made contact with its owner. We need to set up a formal first contact protocol, and we need to do it fast." The silence on the other end stretched for nearly a minute before Director Walsh's voice came through the comm. "Chen, did you just say what I think you said? I'm standing next to a sentient alien who has been alone for thousands of years and is offering to share advanced technology with humanity. The situation is stable, but it's not going to stay that way if we handle this wrong." Marcus could practically hear the director's mind racing through the implications. "What do you need from us?" "Time, privacy, and an open mind," Marcus replied. "This being could advance our civilization by millennia, but only if we approach it as partners rather than conquerors. Send a small diplomatic team, no military escort, and make sure they understand that they're guests here, not investigators." Zetharian watched this exchange with what appeared to be amusement. "Your species' capacity for adaptation continues to impress me," it said quietly. "Most civilizations would require months of preparation for what you are arranging in minutes." Over the next few hours, Marcus found himself serving as an impromptu ambassador between species. He helped Zetharian prepare for human contact, explaining human customs and psychology while learning more about dragon culture and capabilities. The process was enlightening for both of them. "Your people will want proof," Marcus explained. "They'll need to see demonstrations of your technology, evidence that you are what you claim to be." "That will not be difficult," Zetharian replied. "But I must warn you, the full extent of my abilities might be disturbing to human observers. I am, as you would say, quite large in my natural form." Marcus had been wondering about that. How large exactly? Zetharian's human form smiled with what might have been mischief. "Large enough that this ship could fit comfortably in my mouth if necessary. But do not worry, I have excellent control over my size and appearance. I will not accidentally step on your diplomatic team." The mental image of a dragon the size of a space station was both terrifying and oddly comforting. Marcus was beginning to understand that whatever Zetharian truly was, it operated on a scale that made human concepts of power and threat largely irrelevant. When the diplomatic team finally arrived, Marcus was surprised by the director's choice of personnel. Instead of the military officials and xenobiologists he had expected, the team consisted of Dr. Sarah Kim, a cultural anthropologist, Professor James Morrison, a theoretical physicist, and surprisingly, his own supervisor, Engineering Chief Martinez. "Figured you might want a friendly face in the crowd," Martinez explained as the team approached the ship. "Plus, if we're dealing with technology beyond our understanding, we need someone who speaks your language." The first meeting between Zetharian and the human diplomatic team was unlike anything in human history. The dragon had chosen to appear as a synthesis of human features, rather than copying any single individual, creating a form that was clearly artificial, but somehow welcoming. "Welcome aboard my ship," Zetharian said as the team entered the bridge chamber. "I am honored by your presence and hopeful for the future of our species' relationship." Dr. Kim stepped forward, her training in cultural contact protocols evident in her careful approach. "We are equally honored to meet you. On behalf of humanity, I want to express our gratitude for your willingness to establish communication." What followed was the most important conversation in human history. Zetharian shared carefully selected portions of its people's knowledge, demonstrating technologies that proved its claims while avoiding anything that might be dangerous in human hands. The dragon's approach was masterful, revealing enough to establish credibility while maintaining careful control over the pace of disclosure. Professor Morrison was particularly fascinated by the ship's propulsion systems. "The energy requirements for faster-than-light travel have always been considered prohibitive," he said, studying readings that defied known physics. "Your technology seems to sidestep the problem entirely." "We learn to work with the universe rather than against it," Zetharian explained. "Reality is more flexible than most species assume. Once you understand the underlying principles, what seems impossible becomes merely improbable." Chief Martinez, meanwhile, was focused on the practical implications. "If we wanted to build ships using these principles, what would we need? What kind of infrastructure? What materials?" "That is a conversation for another day," Zetharian replied diplomatically. "First, we must establish trust and understanding. Technology shared too quickly can become a curse rather than a blessing." As the hours passed, Marcus watched both sides gradually relax and begin to genuinely communicate rather than simply exchange information. Dr. Kim proved particularly skillful at helping Zetharian understand human psychology and social structures, while the dragon offered insights into galactic civilization that would reshape human understanding of their place in the universe. "There are other species out there," Zetharian revealed. "Many are younger than humanity, still bound to their home systems. But some are older, more advanced. Eventually, humanity will encounter them, and when that happens, you will need to be prepared." The implications of this statement sent ripples through the human team. They had always assumed that first contact would be humanity's introduction to galactic civilization. Learning that they were entering a universe already populated by multiple spacefaring species was both thrilling and daunting. "What should we expect from these other species?" Dr. Kim asked. "Diversity beyond your imagination," Zetharian replied. "Some will be friendly, others indifferent, still others actively hostile. The key is to approach each contact with respect but also with strength. The galaxy rewards species that can defend themselves while punishing those who attack without cause." As the formal meeting continued, Marcus found himself oddly proud of how both sides were handling the situation. Humanity was showing its best face, approaching the unknown with curiosity and caution in equal measure. And Zetharian was proving to be exactly what it had claimed to be, a teacher rather than a conqueror. The breakthrough came when Professor Morrison asked about the fundamental principles underlying dragon technology. Instead of giving a direct answer, Zetharian offered to provide a working demonstration. "I propose a joint project," the dragon said. "We will work together to upgrade one of your ships using hybrid technology. Nothing that could be weaponized, but enough to demonstrate the principles involved. Your people will learn by doing, which is always more effective than learning by listening." The offer was unprecedented. Not just access to alien technology, but collaboration in its implementation. It represented a level of trust that neither species had dared hope for. Director Walsh, who had been listening to the proceedings via comlink, immediately approved the proposal. "We'll provide whatever resources you need," his voice came through the speakers. "This could change everything for humanity." As the diplomatic team prepared to return to their base to begin arrangements for the joint project, Marcus found himself alone with Zetharian once more. The dragon's human form seemed more relaxed now, as if a weight had been lifted from its shoulders. "Thank you," Zetharian said simply. "For the first time in millennia,
I feel hope for the future. Your species may be young, but you have something that my people lost long ago."
"What's that?" Marcus asked.
"The ability to remain humble in the face of power," Zetharian replied. "The willingness to learn rather than simply dominate. If humanity can maintain that quality as it grows stronger, perhaps this galaxy will finally know peace." Marcus looked around the ship that had started as a simple salvage operation and become the foundation for a new era in human history. "What happens now?" "Now we build something new," Zetharian said, its voice filled with determination and hope. "A partnership between species, a sharing of knowledge and wisdom that will benefit both our kinds. It will not be easy, and there will be challenges ahead that we cannot yet imagine. But for the first time since my people's war ended, I believe that the future holds more promise than peril. Standing in that alien ship, surrounded by technology that could transform human civilization, Marcus felt the weight of responsibility and the thrill of possibility in equal measure. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and humanity was about to take its first real steps into that larger universe. The partnership between human ingenuity and dragon wisdom was just beginning, and the possibilities were limitless. What they would build together would echo across the stars for generations to come, a testament to what could be achieved when different species chose cooperation over conquest. In the days that followed, as human and dragon began working together to retrofit the first hybrid vessel, Marcus often reflected on the simple decision that had started it all. He had chosen to repair rather than salvage, to restore rather than strip away. That choice had opened a door to the stars themselves. Sometimes, he thought, the most important decisions were also the simplest ones. The choice to help rather than exploit, to build rather than tear down, to reach out rather than turn away. These were the choices that defined not just individuals but entire species. And humanity had chosen well.